Okay, so today we're going to talk about the cell membrane. The cell membrane structure is that of a phospholipid bilayer. The center of the phospholipid bilayer is hydrophobic, or afraid of water. It repels all water or water-like substances. The outside of that layer actually is hydrophilic. It's attracted to water or water-like substances. There are two kinds of transportation across a cell membrane. The first is passive. There are three kinds of passive transportation, or passive transport, we're going to talk about. The first is simple movement from a high concentration to a low concentration of a solute. As you can see, these things will move down a concentration gradient. It's sort of like, those ninth grade boys that wear so much cologne that you can kind of smell them coming. If I was going to pour a little bit of cologne in the corner of the room, you guys would see that eventually everybody would smell it because it moves from a high concentration to the low concentration. When you look at the cell membrane, let's pretend that these little green dots are oxygen molecules, and they're going to cross across the cell membrane by diffusion. They actually start to go all by themselves. They're so small they can sort of fit through the membrane, and eventually they move in both directions until the concentration is the same on both sides of the membrane. That's called passive transport number one. That's simple diffusion. Here we have the diffusion of water. There's a special name for the diffusion of water. It's called osmosis, and it's sort of a facilitated diffusion because remember we have that hydrophobic zone, the pink zone in the middle. Water couldn't get through there, so there's a protein channel that provides a hole in the membrane for that water to cross through. It's just the right size for water, and nothing else goes through this specific channel. The green blocks are models for protein, and the blue is water that's diffusing across that membrane. It will diffuse until the concentration is the same on both sides of the membrane. Again, from high concentration to low concentration of water. When it's done, that protein pore will just close up. Here we have facilitated diffusion, which is a third kind of passive diffusion, and it requires on sort of a lock and key mechanism in those protein channels. You can see that opens up when just the right shaped molecule comes through, and it triggers the release of it on the other side. It's facilitated by a protein, but it does not require any energy to work. You can see it goes back in the other direction as that red square goes in and triggers movement to push the materials outside the cell. That continues until the concentration of whatever molecule it's moving is the same on both sides of the molecule. There will be the same concentration on the outside of the cell membrane as on the inside. The final kind of transportation across a membrane is called active transport. Active transport requires energy to work. In this case, it's going to use ATP as its form of energy, and it requires the ATP to actually open that channel and for the triangle-shaped molecule to go in. It then pushes it outside. That helps it to push against the concentration gradient. As you can see, there are more green triangles outside the cell on the top than there are on the bottom, which is inside the cell. And you're only able to move against the concentration gradient if you're actually using energy to do it. Active transport results in concentrations of solutes that are not the same on both sides of the cell membrane.